Alrighty guys, it is Kwame here today, also known as Detective Q, and I wanted to have a fun casual conversation with you guys today in regards to Goku and his limits in the Dragon Ball franchise, as recently with Goku's Ultra Instinct form that he used against Jiren, it's made a lot of people wonder if this Mastery of Self movement ability is the peak that we're ever going to see Goku have. And in this video today I'm going to analyze Ball, Z, GT, and Super to really take you through all of the challenges that Goku's overcome and to give you my analysis today. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video. So the first thing we have to talk about is Dragon Ball, and I know the whole conversation is about Dragon Ball as a whole, but specifically dealing with what is referred to as Dragon Ball before Z was separated from the initial parts of the manga. And the thing that we need to talk about here is that Dragon Ball was on a much lower scale in terms of who's the strongest person, because the entire story took place on Earth. And because of this, the Tenkaichi Budokai tournaments were very interesting because in those tournaments themselves, Goku tested himself against the strongest people in the world, but in the world meaning on Earth. And the really cool thing is that Goku at the end of the series, after defeating Piccolo Jr., he'd proven himself as the strongest guy in the world, and that's why a lot of Dragon Ball fans have said that you could have easily have ended the Dragon Ball story there, because when you look at the fact that Goku had lost the 21st tournament to Master Roshi, and then when you look at the fact that he had lost the second Tenkaichi Budokai to Ten Shenhan Tien because of that whole technicality of hitting the car, it seemed like Goku had to keep pushing himself, and that's why I really love the fact that at the beginning of Dragon Ball, Master Roshi entered the tournament to stop Goku and Krillin from having this inflated ego that they can take anybody out, so that they can keep pushing themselves. And that's kind of where Goku really pushed his limits in Dragon Ball, you know, drinking the sacred water, you know, training with, you know, Kami and Mr. Popo for so many years. Everything was restricted to planet Earth, which is why I felt that was such an enriching story, from seeing Goku as a kid to ultimately becoming a man. And then, you know, by the time that Dragon Ball Z comes around, I think the story really explodes in a completely different direction. And I say so because now that everything has been completely established on Earth, now we're bringing extraterrestrial characters into the mix. So now we're seeing characters like the Saiyans, the Namekians, we're seeing characters like Frieza, and then on top of this we have monsters like Majin Buu, and we also have, you know, Cell, who is an artificial creation. And the interesting thing about Majin Buu is the fact that there's been this whole conflict of, was he created by Bibidi, or did Majin Buu already exist? Because Toriyama has said these things, and it's kind of conflicted what we were told before. But either way, Dragon Ball Z took the show to a completely different level by bringing in these very powerful characters outside of planet Earth to push Goku even further. And I think the thing that really pushed Dragon Ball Z is the fact that it really expanded on the whole transformation aspect. You know, in Dragon Ball, Goku could only really go into his Great Ape Ozaru form, but then when you start adding, you know, Saiyans, and how Saiyans have Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan 3 and all of those ascended Super Saiyan forms, it really increased the ceiling and the gap for how strong characters can become because of transformations. So if Goku's weaker than a character, if he finds a way to transform, you know, he could put up a much better fight. And I think that applies for a lot of characters. And I think one thing Dragon Ball Z did very well is that it, besides Super Saiyan transformations, it really did a good job of finding new ways to make characters stronger, with the concepts of the Zenkai boost, and then when you add some more things like the Namekians fusing. I really feel like Toriyama did a very good job in becoming creative with how characters actually become more powerful. And the best thing about Dragon Ball Z, and I'm going to do another video in the future talking more about this, is that although Goku is the main character, in many ways Goku was actually used the least amount in Dragon Ball Z. And I say this because when you look at the Saiyan arc, and the Namek arc, and the Android arc, and the Buu arc, there are always key pivotal moments, whether Goku is dead or Goku's away training or Goku's having a heart virus or Goku's on another planet like Yardrat, where Goku is always taken away from the story. So although this topic is about Goku and reaching his limits, Dragon Ball Z as a whole did a very good job in developing the other characters in the series and testing all of their limits. And quite honestly, at the end of Dragon Ball Z, the interesting thing is that although Goku was the strongest character in Dragon Ball Z at the end when he went to go fight against Oob in the tournament, the interesting thing is that you can really argue that Goku wasn't the strongest character at the end of the Buu saga because, you know, he defeated Buu with the Spirit Bomb and he was weaker, arguably individually weaker than Gotenks and Gohan, and I'm not going to make this a whole power scaling debate, but it really showed you that Goku wasn't completely there. He still had a lot to grow and to expand, and then when Oob came around, it's like Goku is now the master and he's trying to take this kid and to test his own power and also develop Oob so that Oob can one day protect the Earth. So that's really how Dragon Ball Z really changed the series in terms of Goku's limits. And I think the biggest thing is that when we talk about Dragon Ball GT, and I know that a lot of people are going to say Dragon Ball GT is not canon, but taking it right after the end of Z, regardless of if you call GT canon or not, it was intended to be a continuation of Dragon Ball Z, hence Goku's training Oob at the beginning of the series, and some of the aims of GT are very different from what we see in Super. I was talking to Blackenfist the other day, and, you know, it was said at the end of Dragon Ball Z that one of the reasons why Goku was really interested in Oob was because he really wanted to test his power against this reincarnation of Majin Buu. And because Majin Buu was so powerful, Goku wanted to test himself against Buu. But that kind of conflicts with Dragon Ball Super because in terms of power, if Super theoretically comes before the end of Z, then in theory, Goku should not have really been interested in a reincarnation in Majin Buu's power because Majin Buu was kind of a fly compared to what Goku is now. And then when you add this whole Ultra Instinct and Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue, it's not even a question anymore. So the writing is obviously different for its time, but GT to me was very similar to Dragon Ball Z in the sense where it was a story where Goku was testing himself all over again, but the theme between GT and Z is the fact that GT was kind of taking a lot of the old concepts that gave Goku problems in the past and kind of bringing them into fruition. So we see like the overusage of the Dragon Balls and the Shadow Dragons, and then, you know, we also have, you know, Android 17 and, you know, the whole Red Ribbon Army conflict and the Black Star Dragon Balls going into space and the Tuffles wanting revenge for what the Saiyans had done to them. It took a lot of old plot lines and brought them back, and Goku once again had to test himself. And GT, compared to the other three Dragon Ball series, is by far the most dependent on Goku in the franchise when you consider that all of the other characters were literally reduced to, I need to do my best to stall for Goku and Vegeta to power up because I'm completely irrelevant based off of storytelling. And really, the other characters spent the whole series just waiting around for Goku. And the interesting thing about Super Saiyan 4 is that Super Saiyan 4 kind of brought back that whole primal energy feeling towards Goku, and we even had a moment during the Shadow Dragons arc in which all of the characters were powering up Goku and Goku surpassed his limits even in Dragon Ball GT as a Super Saiyan 4. So we've kind of had that whole concept and then the whole concept of fusing. So in GT, when you really look at it, when it comes to the ending with Omega Shenron, Goku wasn't strong enough to take him down by himself, and then he leaves, and there's a whole theory video I did about what actually happened to Goku at the end of GT, but Goku leaves, comes back many years later to check on Goku Jr., and the rest is history. And that's kind of how Goku's legacy was left off in GT. But now when we get to Dragon Ball Super, what all of you guys have been waiting for, I really think the interesting thing about Dragon Ball Super and Goku is the fact that it completely takes the story on a completely different scale. And obviously with Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F being movies, they kind of adapted them into Super, and we have this whole god hierarchy of gods of destruction, Supreme Kais, angels, and then Zeno and his guards. And now there's a completely new scale outside of extraterrestrials that Goku now has to overcome. And the interesting thing about it is that once Goku, or if Goku ever surpasses all of these gods, besides Zeno, I mean, what is there really left for Goku to do? And let me also add that if you look at the Tormented Power itself, Goku is not only going to potentially test himself against the gods, but he's also testing himself against all of the mortals, so he's proving himself to be the strongest character in all the different universes, plus also surpassing the gods. And recently I did a video talking about Jiren, if Jiren was a villain, and one thing that I think is very key is that even if Jiren was a villain and gave all of the gods of destruction and characters a big problem, similar to what Zamasu did as Goku Black, Zeno could just wipe him out easily. So in theory, Zeno is so powerful that it seems like Goku's never going to be able to surpass that. But with Super, I think we're finally getting to the point where Goku is going to be passing virtually everybody out there, and it's hard for Goku to really go past anybody else when he's already past the gods besides Zeno, and Zeno can erase you, so Zeno's power is kind of irrelevant because there's really no way to stop him based off of what was said during the Future Trunks arc. So ultimately, guys, that's been my discussion of analyzing Goku from Ball all the way to GT to Z to Super, and really looking at how Goku's limits have expanded throughout the franchise. And I would really like to hear your thoughts in the comment section below as to what you think Goku can really do if he ever surpasses all of these gods with the Ultra Instinct, if this is a form that truly rivals gods themselves. But that's been my video for today. Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always say, to have a great day, guys. And I can't believe that I did this entire video with one take.